My name is Petra Ostermann. I'm 39 years old and I've had diabetes for 32 years. I work in an office. My vocation is to educate people about diabetes. I'm in a local diabetes group and go to events relating to people with diabetes. I got diabetes at 7 due to an illness, an autoimmune illness. At first the diagnosis shocked me and my parents. I dealt with it relatively well at the time. Problems only arose later, during puberty really. I put my diabetes aside somehow. I didn't want to face up to it. I was pretty mischievous. After a while I came to terms with it again, just like a switch going on in my head. Then I really committed to it and said there's no other way. Somehow you have to lead a disciplined life, but nevertheless you have to have all the freedom you need. I really enjoy the pleasures in life, and for me eating is a pleasure, a luxury. I love to cook and I like to go shopping and drink a coffee when I'm out shopping. Or go to a bar in the evening, and caipirinhas really aren't an obstacle. I just have no sugar. I use sweetener. And the barkeeper says, caipirinha without sugar? But that's a matter of taste. You can be really flexible, and I can do stuff like that. I personally don't feel restricted by diabetes. My philosophy is, well, I'm living with diabetes and not for my diabetes. So really, I've always dealt with it really openly. To that effect, long-term consequences are an issue for me because working with the diabetes group, I have lots of patients who are already suffering long-term consequences. And that is the big problem with children. It doesn't hurt right now, and they don't understand that. And how do you explain long-term consequences to children? Regular checks are really important, and if it's diagnosed early enough and treated with the right therapy, you can avoid these long-term consequences. I check my blood glucose 5 to 7 times a day. Every day. It depends on the situation, but regularly with meals and before I go to bed. I do it discreetly under the table or go to the toilet. However, it is now a widespread disease. Everyone knows what a blood glucose meter is, and everyone knows the situation, and people just talk to you about it, and you come into contact or hear that someone has diabetes, and you can chat to them about it. I have to say, now I'm satisfied and happy the way it is. I would definitely advise parents and also children to try out a certain therapy first of all. And because I'm a pump carrier myself, I can only recommend it and advise people to try out the pump therapy. Everyone has this opportunity. Of course, there are children who say, no, I'm just not doing it, but you have to try everything. You should accept as much information as you can. For me, I always say this is the artificial pancreas outside my body, and I can operate it depending on my circumstances. I always try to let parents know that diabetes doesn't have to become a full-time job. Back to what I just said about living with diabetes and not for it. And don't see everything too severe, even if levels are poor for a few days. Don't just throw in the towel. There will be tough times, but you can get through everything, and these days you can reach a ripe old age with diabetes. So now I've just taken a step in pump therapy, continuous glucose measurement. This step has now been taken. Just 1.5 years ago, these devices were really huge. It's incredible the giant steps that have been taken medically and in terms of research in the past 30 years. For example, back then my parents were told, your daughter will experience a revolution. That was a glimmer of hope for my parents, and when I talk to children or show the different kinds of injections I've had and how restricting it was for me and the way it works all today, that gives a lot of parents hope.